Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I'm the president of Ubiquity University, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our first community call since our summer programs in Chartres this past July and August. It was a spectacular summer. We had more students and more courses than we've ever had in the history of the Chartres Academy that goes back now 14 years. And we've spent the last several weeks since our August courses preparing for next year. And we'll be saying something about that in the second half of this call. But as we've done every year, after we've gathered in Chartres, we've spent this call just initially remembering what took place there, remembering how we felt, remembering an event that touched us particularly deeply. We will open up to various of the faculty and students in a moment, and I will be guiding that conversation. But I want, and as we start this call, to say that after 14 years, we are experiencing transitions. As people come and people go and people rise up, new faculty, new core faculty. We had a number of people that were with us for the first 7 years, and then ongoingly for 14 years. You may remember Karen Rivers was with us for 10 years, and then she retired after Geometrica a year and a half ago. Apila Colorado, who's been with us from the beginning, has retired at the end of this cycle. She graced us for 14 glorious years, and she's now focusing on a major documentary on the dream work. And that's given an opportunity to others to rise in their own right, very similarly to the Chartrian Masters in Academy back with Fulbert 1,000 years ago. If you look at that history, people would come in and out, but gradually there was a building of wisdom, a building of experience, a deepening of adoration, generation after generation. And we're endeavoring to do the same thing. We're building an edifice here. And it's within that context that I want to turn this over to Banafsheh Sayad, who has now joined me as the co-director of Chartres. Many of you know she's the creative director for Ubiquity University. She developed our brand, our colors, our logo. She's been a faculty at Chartres for the past 4 years. She, at the end of Geometrica, envisioned a completely new era for Chartres. Up until that point, we've been meeting 1 week a year, and she has envisioned a globalization of Chartres. She conceived of the Chartres framework, which takes the 7 liberal arts and matches them with the 7 chakras, with the 7 colors of the rainbow, with the 7 essential soft skills that study after study says are needed in the world today, the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. The Chartrian framework now frames the entire curriculum of Ubiquity. She has developed a new scheduling for our liberal art. She conceived of Madonna Rising. And so we now have 2 major courses there, one in July and one in August. So as time ebbs and flows, people rise and people leave and others rise, and now it's a time for, as we face a whole new cycle, because in 2020 we start with the first liberal art. This will be our third cycle, and the depth to which we've gone in this sacred place. I'm here as we speak. I just got into Chartres yesterday and was in the cathedral this morning. I stood before the Lady of the Pillar and gave deep, deep thanks. I gazed upon the blue Madonna and realized that I was home. This is our sanctum sanctorum. And I'm deeply, deeply grateful for this opportunity and for all of us who've been building this academy over more than a decade now, for the last 14 years, as we consecrated the 1000th anniversary of the building of the original Chartres Academy over 1,000 years ago. So I'll turn it over to Bonifche with thanks. And then after Bonifche speaks, I'll have various of the faculty and the students say a few words about what they remember about our summer programs. Bonifche.
Thank you so much, Jim. Hello, everyone. I welcome you to our call. The people who were with us in the summer and also people who are wanting to join us next year. Welcome. I'll begin with a few general comments, reflections that I had about our two intensives in Chartres, the two that I participated in. The Cosmic Dance of Astronomica was the first time I was co-director. And I'm grateful for people's receptivity to my changing the schedule to allow more time for reflection and assimilation and to spend more time in the cathedral. We were able to have a little bit more time for yin, cultivating the yin, and for simply being. So I'm very grateful for that. We had phenomenal speakers. They were all wonderful. And I feel the week was quite amazing and quite fulfilling for the participants that attended and for the faculty. Madonna Rising was conducted in a whole new way for the Academy. We put much more emphasis on experiential knowing and creativity and participation, not just passively receiving lectures, but to participate. We spent a good deal of time in movement. We spent a lot of time in sacred theater with the amazing Peggy Rubin, and we sang, led by the incredible Ruth Cunningham, who has now joined us on the call. She will speak after me, I hope. And we had extended time in the cathedral. All of this was really what I had hoped for and envisioned. What really touched me during Madonna Rising were two things. One was the cohesiveness of the faculty. We were a small group of faculty, and we really held the week together with such love and such dedication to the work and to each other. And it was really our bond that kept our ship afloat, because we were in the unknown waters with this course. We had never done something like this before. So I'm very grateful to that and grateful to the faculty. And Bering's lectures were phenomenal and gave us so much information and guided much of our time together. I was also very moved in the last session that we had together, where we reflected on what was rising in us and what we were taking into our lives to dedicate ourselves to. And as we went around the circle of 50-something people that we were, each one of us, each person expressed such eloquence and such profundity. I was very moved by the way people had received the course. I was a little concerned because we were so ambitious with the topic. We wanted to explore the rising of the feminine and what the Assumption signifies. What does it mean for our world? We explored the Shekinah, the Black Madonna, the life of Mary, Virgin Mary, and the life of Mary Magdalene to some degree. And we also explored the union between the masculine and the feminine. So a lot of topics. And I was a bit concerned, but as we went around and people shared, everyone had taken something very profound from our time together. And it just showed that everything was as it needed to be. And I was also moved by the wisdom, the pearls of wisdom that came from everyone as they expressed how their lives had transformed. Again, confirming that wisdom isn't in just one person, guru style, bestowing knowledge upon everyone, but it's also in the shared community and the shared wisdom that we experience together when our hearts and minds come together, focused on the same themes. So these were my general comments, but I have something also specific to talk about, and I'm going to be very brief. The first time that I whirled in the center of the labyrinth for our group was during Astronomica. I was invited to do this for our academy the first time, and I felt very grateful for the opportunity to whirl my prayer. And through whirling my prayer, doing that on behalf of the whole group. The circumstances were such that we couldn't announce that I was going to be doing this before the actual event, up to the very moment that I actually went in and did the whirling. And the reason was because of the church politics. At that point, the whirling in the labyrinth was in its early stages as an experiment and hadn't been shared with the greater cathedral community and the clergy. So we were just kind of hesitant. And because of this, the participants in the intensive, many of you who are here today, were not told in advance that this was going to happen. So it came as a surprise, and the surprise of the whirling in the center of the labyrinth was received by many in a very joyous and loving way. And I'm very grateful to all of you and all the people who held the circle, the container, for my bold move. But for some of the women in our circle, my bold move, this bold move was challenging, and it became controversial. And I totally understand how precious the ceremony of walking the labyrinth is, and how personal it is for many of us, and how attached we are to the traditional way this ceremony has been conducted. And so I want to sincerely apologize to those of you who felt challenged by this action, by my whirling in the labyrinth. These were the first steps, these were the first turns, and my wish and my aim is to be able to include whoever wants to experience the turns, a few short turns in the center as part of our ceremony. Because there's a very close relationship between the labyrinth and whirling. There's a very close relationship between the labyrinth and the turn. As you enter the labyrinth, you go into a clockwise turn, and exiting the labyrinth is a counterclockwise turn. So there is a deep affinity between the two practices. That's all I want to say for now, and I look forward to hearing everyone else reflect on our time together. Thank you.
Thank you, Banafshe. We'll say much more about whirling when we get to the 2020 liberal arts and Madonna Rising, because it's helping to shape a whole new ritual form. But let's turn to our remembrances, which is the initial point of this call. Ruth Cunningham was present at both. She only has a few moments because she has some church obligations, I believe, in New York City, Ruth. But I just want to say in introducing Ruth, I think I said it from the podium at the end of Astronomica. Did she have to disappear? Oh, she was here momentarily. Maybe she already had to go. I am so sorry. But her voice opened our call, and I'll just say that she was the MVP. She was the most valuable player. She was there every day, all day. She held it together with her voice. Several of the times, particularly in Madonna Rising, her voice in the cathedral was just stunning. It was just stunning. And one of the things that we're developing for next year is a whole performance, an event in the cathedral where Ruth would sing, and an amazing flautist named Helga, who leads groups, who's been coming to Chartres for, I think, over 30 years. Deeply committed musician. And he and Banafshe and Ruth are beginning to develop with a woman named Jill Joffrin, who we're going to have on this call maybe next month, but over the next couple of months, who's a devotee of Chartres, written a number of books on Chartres and Mary Windows and Mary Magdalene and so forth. So there's a lot that's beginning to percolate about next year. So I'll honor Ruth in her absence. She'll join us next call, I'm sure. And also, I've just turned it over to Anne Baring, who was there in Astronomica and then again virtually in Madonna Rising. So Anne, why don't you offer some remembrances, and then we'll go to a couple of our students. I know Eileen Daly and Mary Miller have something to say, and then we'll circle back to several of the faculty. Anne?
Oh, for me, it was a most marvelous experience. First of all, getting myself there, which was quite a business. And then meeting old friends. And I thought the atmosphere was quite extraordinary. And Ruth singing, which I hadn't heard before, for me, lifted the whole conference onto another level and really connected with the immortal zone, as the Greeks would have said. It really was, well, a raising of the vibrations of the whole community that were there, about over 100 people, I think. So that was one of the major things that affected me. And I've been in touch with Ruth, and she sent me some of her marvelous singing since then. So I've been listening to it in the daytime. Also to hear Rick speaking and give his prognosis for the next few years, not very happy one, I seem to remember. And Jim's extraordinary exposition on, I don't know whether it was quantum physics, but it was absolutely brilliant. So that remained in my mind. I've taken notes on it, but I can't remember specifically what he said. There were so many things, just meeting old friends for me and meeting Georgie for the first time in the flesh, so to speak, having been corresponding with her before. And altogether for me, it was a joyous and exalting experience, I think. Also to see Banafshe whirling. There again, the whirling makes the connection with the other dimension. There's no question about it. It lifts the whole thing onto another plane. And I may say that all the people who've been involved in Chartres over the past centuries are present in these conferences. They're absolutely there with you, with Jim, with Banafshe. And their presence probably accentuates the atmosphere and gives it a richness and a depth that perhaps one wouldn't have had otherwise. So I always remember the presence of the others who've lived there before. So I think that's all I have to say. But it was marvelous.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you so much. Anne will be giving another webinar with Georgie over the next couple of months. I don't know exactly when the date is, but we'll keep everybody apprised. And so let's turn to a couple of our students. Maybe we'll start with the Irish. Eileen Daly was there for both courses. Eileen, do you want to say something about your experience? And then Mary Miller. And Mary, are you available, or Georg, can you bring either of them on?
I just started with Amy, but somehow she has not rejoined as attendee.
I don't know if you can hear me, Jim. Can you?
Ah,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Ah, okay. Hi, I didn't think I was going to make this. So I'm using my iPhone literally, and I have never used Zoom on my iPhone. So it's trial and error.
Oh, you're coming across very clearly, Mary.
Oh, great, great.
Very
Well,
clearly.
I'm
Well
en
done.
route from just been listening. I'm in London at the moment, en route to elsewhere, and I had an amazing couple of hours listening to Beethoven's Fifth and Ninth Symphony, which came as a real surprise. And even more of a surprise, I didn't think I'd be able to connect with you this evening. But that both of Beethoven has a very significant place in my life. And in the middle of listening to that came Chartres. It's unbelievable, really, because I was sitting there thinking, oh God, I'm going to miss the community call. But Madonna Rising opened so much for me, not to mention Astronomica, to all of the faculty. I give my heartfelt thanks, sincere, real soul thanks, because it allowed me to dare to do things I've dreamed of doing. And I didn't dare before, but between Astronomica, which was just amazing, and Madonna Rising, somewhere in between those 3 weeks, I went through huge transformation. And then in Madonna Rising, it just all came to the fore. And today, when I thought, well, there can't be any more manifestation, even more came. And I'd had to make sense of this, to connect it, I think, to the labyrinth, and hello to Banachek and your amazing whirling, which opened many portals for all of us, especially for me. I had a dream when I was 14, 15 years old that I would play piano and I would be able to play Beethoven and many others. And I was studying music as one of my school subjects. But when it came to playing the piano, you needed one at home, of course. And my mother, bless her, who was not a music lover, wouldn't hear of it. She banished it totally, the idea of it. And so, not to be thwarted in my dream, I took the theoretical part of the subject rather than the practical. And so for 2 years, this is a true lesson in karma on the mind of a 15-year-old, I did a project comparing Beethoven's third and fifth symphonies. And so it meant that I had to listen to the music ad nauseum in that house where my poor parents suffered what to them was absolute horror. And it would have been easier to buy the piano. And I had the perfect excuse because I could say, well, you know, it's for my school, I have to do this. And today, sitting in the Royal Albert Hall, which is circular, as I'm sure you know, image of the labyrinth just literally appeared. And I'd been hearing this song for weeks, and I'm clairaudient, so the song was driving me nuts. Any Dream Will Do, not one of my favorites from Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And here came an image of me at 15, fighting against all the odds for just one of these small dreams. And the song came in my head, Any Dream Will Do. And that for me is the summary of Madonna Rising and Astronomica, because it's allowed me to just understand that I can change the dream. But we simply can't live without a dream. Because living without that is living without hope, and that's unthinkable. So I came away from Chartres with just mind-blowing, unbelievable feelings, thoughts, and it continues. I am literally turning my life on its head as we speak. I am changing all of it. And I'm daring to live out the dream, regardless of what anybody else thinks, likes, or doesn't like. And I thank you, Jim, for your amazing lectures. I loved your lectures on quantum physics, for Banachek's fabulous creation, and Ruth for her amazing music. Anne Baring is always mind-blowing to me. Rick Tarnas, everybody, you couldn't name them all. Between you, I think there's synchronistic energy, a sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? A zeitgeist, that's what happened. I think that's what happened this time. So great to see your faces again, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. We're had dinner with Mary several times during the Chartres sessions and with Eileen, and there's something going to develop around Ireland. I think we may be due for a pilgrimage to Ireland with Mary and Eileen leading as pipe through the. We're going to look for fairies and elves.
Well, both Eileen and I, who's again, we met in Chartres, and it's as if we know each other from past lives, believe me. We just picked up where we left off. But we live in the Northwest, both of us, in a very mythical part of Ireland. It's not for the faint-hearted. But we both had said this, Chartres needs to open up to Europe, because it's really, I mean, the Wisdom School, it's known mostly in America, of course, but it's actually not known much in Europe. And I tell everybody I meet about it, and they're saying to me, what, where, you can go to this? So I've been doing all sorts of marketing on your behalf. And I think Eileen has great ideas on that too. We want to sort of bring the Celts and the Druids back quietly onto the radar, if you will allow us.
Well, thank you, thank you. You know, the Irish saved civilization much, and under current circumstances, we may have to turn to the Irish again. So thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you so much. Let's circle back to the faculty, and starting with you, Mari, and then Lynn. And then if there's any students that would like to speak, I'd love to hear from any of you. I note that Genoa is there. Maybe Genoa can speak. Anybody else that wants to speak, just Sheila. There we go. So we'll circle back to the students after Mari and Lynn speak. So Mari?
Yeah, thanks so much, Jim. And Mary, it's great to hear your voice. That is one of the things that really stood out for me from Chartres. I've been there 3 times, starting out 7 years ago with the Astronomica course, and then the Grammatica course a couple of years after. So it was beautiful to return and be in that space, and then to have this course with the Madonna Rising and truly be a part of the pilgrimage of remembering, and that dream quality that emerged and stayed with me as well. So I totally can relate, Mary. A lot of things just totally unfolding, and it just feels so beautiful to have been a part of it. And what stands out also is that with the course, with the Madonna Rising and the pilgrimage, being a part of that, and the experiential aspect, I think, is huge, and a needed quality in any kind of teaching or coursework today. So yes, it's wonderful to be a part of it, and then have this course coming up, which I'll say some more about, Ainana and the spirituality. So thank you. Nice to see all of you.
Thank you, Mari. Mari gave a wonderful, brilliant lecture on Inanna, and that's one reason why we wanted to have now a whole course, a whole webinar that she'll be doing. I will be doing a little bit of it as well. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Lynn.
Right. I just turned my microphone on. Hi. Well, it's wonderful again. I came back last year after not being at Chartres for about 5 or 6 years, and I'd been at the first 8. And it was like dropping into a very deep place in myself. And one of the things I realized is that all of you had held and created and invited, and even the people who've only come once, if you return, that returning to Chartres, not just the turning of the labyrinth in the different directions, but the return to Chartres, which will have shifted and moved, as Jim said, things rise, things fall away, was extremely profound for me, extremely profound to drop in, and also to hold a very concentrated role, let's say, of a very small amount of time, and offer something to the group each day that could be used, meditated on, dropped into. I'm hearing too, I had an amazing summer, besides being with you in Chartres and coming back just for an evening in Madonna Rising. I was at Hildegard van Bingen's Abbey in Germany, and 2 weeks ago I was at Delphi, and just before that the Asclepius Healing Temple. So I've had these extraordinary paths opened during the summer to touch into many sacred places. But being with all of you was an incredible part of that. I heard two things. One is, all of this summer there was a square between Jupiter and Neptune, which is a cycle of grace and vision. And when I listen to Bonafé and the way people talk about Madonna Rising, this cycle is about dreaming unboundedly and not knowing what will happen, with the risk of losing control of what could emerge or come out of it. And the last square between these two planets was just about 10 days ago. And I can hear this in what you gathered. And the other energy which we're still working and are coming back into is the squeeze of Saturn, particularly Saturn with the South Node. And tomorrow is the day where the Sun squares Saturn. And it has to do with making a decision, making a direction, making a commitment to self, like weighing the different possibilities in your life and deciding which of those, making a commitment, even if it's costly on one side, but opens things on the other, to do something that will take you to a place you are longing to go and that you need to go, holding the deepest part of self. So again, wonderful to be with you and to feel again on this call the same energy I felt as we gathered.
Thank you, Lynn. By the way, it was Lynn that guided the planting of the little cedar tree.
Right.
And, might take a little moment on that, and then we'll hear from Sheila and others that were there. But you all remember, we had the opportunity to plant a cedar tree seed from Lebanon. And it took a little while, and Kate Genevieve and Vivian Falk and Mary Lou Bell and various people, and then Lynn got involved to make sure that we were doing this planting of the seed at exactly the right time of the new moon. And it turns out that scientifically it's all true. That when Vivian really researched when and how to plant these little cedar tree seeds on a new moon is absolutely essential. So we gathered, a couple of us, Bonafé, Vivian, Mary Lou, Katie, and I, with the city fathers and mothers of a little village outside of Chartres that has a cedar tree forest. It's right close to the source, one of the biggest aquifer in France. It's the source. very pure water. And Louis XIV had a special aqueduct built from this place right outside of Chartres all the way to Versailles. So we planted this little seedling at Lynn's directive on the full moon in late August, and it's supposed to sprout around November 1. And so everybody hold a little cedar seed in your hearts and minds, that it might germinate and grow and endure over time. So thank you, Lynn, for everything you've done over the years, and again at Astronomica. So we'll turn now to Sheila. Remember for us your experiences there.
There you go. Now you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. I did the dissertation week, and right from the very beginning, I had never been to Ubiquity University or Chartres, never been to Europe before. And right from the beginning, they held my dream of the labyrinth that I had been working on. And I kept telling them, they kept saying, this needs to be published, this needs to be published. And I said, I'm not sure that I know it needs to be published, but I don't know if it needs to be a dissertation. The 3 minutes then that you gave me, Jim, to get up on the podium, and yay on you, because you didn't know what I was going to be doing when I went up there. But when you held up the labyrinth, the spiral, and then even at the end, when you said, the labyrinth has been verticalized, you put flesh on it, you gave it, you authentically reflected back to me what I carried in my heart to the people at Chartres. And I have to say now that this particular labyrinth as a teaching tool for getting back to our origin stories of innate intelligence and inherent wisdom is going to be potentially a teaching tool in the Association of Pre- and Perinatal Psychology. They want to develop it as a teaching tool. And the head of the Department of Education said, Sheila, the next time you go to Chartres, let me know, because I'm in Germany and I will meet you there. So we're cross-pollinating. It's interdisciplinary. And whatever the founders of Chartres wanted all those centuries ago, we're helping flesh out. Thank you for the opportunity to bring and share my labyrinth, and for the tap back that everyone gave me. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sheila. And just for those of you who don't remember, who weren't there, Sheila's work as a health professional is around the labyrinthian journey in the womb that every human being goes through before being born. I'd never even conceived that thought before. And then when you match that with the fact, and Kaylin, you need to correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's as many stones in the labyrinth as there are in a 9-month gestation in the womb. And so this whole notion of whirling, turning, the labyrinthian journey is very profound. So Sheila, I hope you end up doing a doctorate with us, but under any and all circumstances, you have to publish this work. It's very profound. And you know, we come to Chartres, I mean, we think we'll just walk the labyrinth. And then, you know, to discover that we were on a labyrinthian journey since the moment we were conceived. That's right. And that the earth spinning around the sun and the sun spinning around the Milky Way, everything is spinning, everything is turning all the time. And as Plotinus said, it's in the spinning that the universe breathes together. And so Sheila, I was so overwhelmed and illumined my mind and my appreciation from the Chartres. There's sort of before Sheila and after in terms of, so I hope you come again, and maybe next year you can do a deeper dive with all of us around this, because that's what's happening after 14 years. We're deepening into the sacredness of the space and the place, and every person who comes adds to that journey and deepens our awareness of who we are and why we come, and why we feel so powerfully transformed when we experience in community the deep womb that Chartres is. So thank you very much for your presence there.
Thanks, Jim.
Kaylin, why don't you say a few words? This would be a good time to bring in Kaylin.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
On the part about the journey, the Malakulan tribe in Polynesia, from the time someone is a young child, they teach them how to walk a labyrinth, or to negotiate the path of a labyrinth, because they believe that when a person passes away, as they cross over the threshold, they step onto a labyrinth. And at that moment, because they've been taught their whole life, they can make it to their next station of afterlife because they know how to walk on a labyrinth. So literally, there's some societies that have it after you pass away, and other societies, they have it in the time you're living. The verticalization that took place last summer, I began 14 years ago when we first went to Chartres. So this was sort of a culmination of a long energetic process, part of which, when I bought this property here in Maine that I'm setting up where we have our School of Sacred Landscapes, I have a very large stone on the back of the property, which was not, I couldn't see it for the ground cover and the trees when we looked at the property from Google Earth, but I put an offer in on the property because something in the woods was spinning at 1,760 hertz, which, if you've had any of my classes, you know that the 110 hertz is the voice of an ancient teaching. So 1760 meant that there are 16 voices on this property that I live on. And finally this summer, when I dowsed the center of the Chartres labyrinth, it is at 1,760 hertz, which means the full 16 voices are now on the Chartres labyrinth and are accessible. So anybody that hasn't been to Chartres before, please come. For those of you who are there at the Madonna Rising, you will know that the labyrinth was verticalized because of our experience with Francois and Lauren from Dubai, and Jim knows that story about what happened to her on the last day. But that to me indicated that the labyrinth had been verticalized and that all dimensions of it were now accessible. And that's all I have for now. If you want to learn a little bit more about some of this stuff, the Energetics of Art online course is up and running.
Thank you, Kaylin. If anyone else would like to contribute, please just raise your hand. In the meantime, I think I'll turn to the future because we have about 20 minutes left. And I would like to start by saying that over the next several months, we have a number of courses that we've intentionally designed to be part of, I would call it, the kind of the afterburn of Chartres. As I indicated, Mari gave a splendid lecture on Inanna. Inanna, in many ways, is the primordial mother goddess of certainly Sumeria and Western civilization. And we thought that it would be an opportunity for those of us who wanted to take a deeper dive to do so with Mari in a webinar that we'll be having November, December. Mari, do you want to say a quick word about that?
Yes, thank you. Oh, it's such a blessing for me to have this opportunity to continue to share with you this course. And for those of you who haven't or who weren't able to be there, I just want you to know that I've been working with the Inanna myth or the Inanna story, however you want to call it, her story, for 20 years now. And what stands out for me mostly is that it's about remembering. It's about remembering. Her myth starts out with the connection to the tree, the sacred tree that was about to be swept away. And so just pointing out in Chartres that when I was so delighted to have that blessing of the cedar tree because it's so meaningful for me. That was the morning that I was giving the talk on Inanna. So the whole alignment and energetic flow of that week, and then for me to have that little blessing and then give the talk on Inanna, because it's about remembering our connection to nature. And then also Inanna's myth is so dynamic. And what I'll do in this 4-part course is break it down so that it's easier for you to relate to and connect, because it's so very, very interdynamic with so many aspects, and particularly understanding the development of the self, the human development. So it's connecting both women and men with our inner development based on Jung's individuation of the self, and also pointing out that it's about Inanna's counterparts, so her connection and relationship with others, and that can be a beautiful mirror for us to reflect and understand not only ourselves but the other on a deeper level. So that's all I'll say for now, but thank you for letting me, giving me the opportunity to go ahead and go deeper into this Inanna myth, Jim. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mari. Look forward to it. I'll be joining her for the first lecture on Gilgamesh. It was Gilgamesh's relationship with Inanna that was so crucial to the Epic of Gilgamesh. Kaylin, do you want to say anything more, just very briefly, on the Energetics of Art course?
Yeah, it's 6 sessions. The first 5 are webinars, and then Laura Skulkas from Portugal and I will be back on December 12th for the last session, where people will bring together all of the artworks they've created after watching the first 5 videos. There's an introductory session that explains basics of energetics and dowsing, and then there's a session on haiku, contemplative brush, soul collage, and labyrinths. Those are the 4 sessions, and then we'll come together at the end to share everything we've created, and Laura will explain how to create portable altars that you can take with you using the various elements. That's it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Kaylin got 10-star rave reviews, he and Laura, for the last Energetics of Art course. So this, any of you who have not experienced this, please consider doing so. Banavshe, why don't you say a word about your course coming up in Minla in December on whirling in the quantum field?
We're going to be at Menla, which is a center, a Tibetan Buddhist center in upstate New York. It's in Phoenicia, New York, in the Catskills. It's near Woodstock. And we will spend 5 days there with Andrew Harvey, Jim Garrison, and myself, and special guest Kaylin Rain, who will bring a portable labyrinth. We will be looking at the parallels between quantum physics and Sufism and Tibetan Buddhism, and how quantum physics is saying a lot of what was said by the Sufis and the Tibetan Buddhists, but in a new way. So we'll explore specifically the mantra Om Mani Padme Om and La ilaha illallah, the two central mantras, one of the Tibetan of the Tibetan Buddhists and one of the Sufis, and compare them, as well as go deeply into the whirling and experience the whirling as a spiritual path, and compare the whirling with Om Mani Padme Hum, the stages of the whirling, which is in 4, similar to the mantra. So this is a special time of the year. It falls on Rumi's passing night, his wedding night, Shab-e Arus, on the 17th of December. So on that night, we will have a special ceremony of whirling, and also Andrew and I will present some performance, some dance and poetry together. So that's our 5 days there. It should be quite wonderful. Again, another new first time that we're doing something like this. So I'm looking forward. Hope you can join us.
Thank you. I'm going to do my little nuggets on the Om Mani Padme Hum. That's been my mantra since I was about 7 years old. And it's very dear and deep in my psyche, and the opportunity to do the Om Mani Padme Hum with the deep mantras of Islam, something I've never contemplated before. So I always love to put myself in these situations where I can become the student again. So I appreciate that opportunity. Then let me just say, in the few minutes we have remaining, what we're doing for the beginning of the new cycle of liberal arts next July is, I think, going to be extraordinary. And the ideal follow-on to Astronomica and the very deep prognosis that we got from Rick Chartres about what's coming. And as I've been thinking about that, I've been realizing that what we really need to go into is in terms of the grammar, the grammatica. It was the liberal art that was developed by Plato. He believed that the word was foundational to the cosmos, sound. And, you know, and what is the most fundamental word about the world today? I think it's our experience of trauma. I mean, look at Brexit, look at Trump, look at the world. All of us are being traumatized almost all the time. How do we understand trauma and its effect on our bodies? How do we understand the transformation of consciousness? How do we move from just knowing to knowing how? And so we're going to be changing the entire format of Grammatica. It's not going to be just lectures and sitting back and enjoying erudition. It's going to be, how do we practice meditative techniques? How do we align our heart and our brain? You know, we remember in Astronomic every morning, we did what I call the polishing of the heart, following the Sufis. We're going to do a lot of polishing the heart. We are going to be bringing in measuring devices. They measure heart coherence, brain coherence. We want to teach the techniques of personal transformation, personal healing, so that we go through a 7-day initiatory process that's about moving from trauma to the transformation of our consciousness in real time. Real time. And we're going to be doing something that we've been thinking about for many, many, many years. We're going to be inaugurating our Jedi Warrior School. And several of our young faculty, Matt Robertson and Nora Cellini and Lee Mason and others, who have deep spiritual commitments and competence, are going to mentor young people who are going to be brought in for their own kind of parallel track. Because we all know that this next generation is ground zero. If we don't solve the global problems that are besetting planet Earth very quickly, we're going to forfeit civilization as we know it. And so how we empower the next generation to be Jedi warriors, if you've ever seen any of the Star Wars movies, is exactly what we want to do. So we're well underway on that. And then we're going to be going down to the caves of the Dordogne and working with paleologists down there, Pascal Rao, who's born there, lived there all his life. He knows more about the caves, the Lascaux and the Dordogne region, where, as you all know, cave paintings go back 20, 30, 40,000 years. And we're gonna structure it as a shamanic journey into primordial mind. So we're going to be studying the transformation of consciousness during Grammatica within the context of the labyrinth and the cathedral. And then we're going to be going down into the caves. And Pierluigi Latuada, who's the founder of the Integral Transpersonal Institute in Milan, Italy, who's been a shaman trained in Brazil 40 years ago and has been teaching and studying shamanic practice. He's going to be bringing his drums and his instruments, his medicine bag, down to the caves with us. So that will be the liberal art. And then in August, we're going to be having Madonna Rising. I'll turn it over to Banafsheh at this point. And in some ways, the partnership between us, I'll be taking a sort of a major role in the liberal art in Grammatica and the caves, but it's about embodied transformed consciousness. So Banafsheh will be leading us, as she's done for 4 years now, into the embodiment of these practices, because that's the whole point, is to align the heart, your brain, your immune system. How do we do that in a way that we embody the transformation that we seek? And then in Madonna Rising, and then in the pilgrimage to the Mary Magdalene and Black Madonna sites in August, Banafsheh will be the lead in those journeys. So Banafsheh, why don't you say a few words about that?
Well, for Madonna Rising, which we're actually contemplating calling it Madonna Rose, because she rose. So it's going to be a similar lineup of faculty as this year, but we're going to focus on less themes, focusing mostly on the Assumption of Black Madonna and Mary Magdalene and the Shekinah. So that's going to lead us into the pilgrimage that we're planning, the Mary Magdalene pilgrimage to south of France. That's all I will say for now on it. Please check back on the link to read more, and in the subsequent calls we'll share more about the content and what we will be planning on doing. Of course, it'll be similar in the way that it's going to be movement-based, theater-based, art-based, basically, singing, moving, dancing, whirling, and theater. Those are going to be the modalities that we will use, and lots of time in the cathedral. So that's all I would say for now, and to share more later. Thank you.
Thank you, Banafsheh. And I want to just say a word that you can find on our website now, and Georg has been putting in the links. We already have landing pages for Grammatica and the Caves and Madonna Rising. We're almost finished with Mary Magdalene. We'll be getting the pricing information, the logistical information up over the next week or two. We'll be keeping everybody informed. I want to just pause and thank the staff. You know, we have the best staff at Ubiquity that it's a dream team. And Claire and Bob and Georgie and Katie and Banafshe worked, you know, around the clock to make sure that we had the landing pages up for this call and for Mari's course and Whirling and the Energetics of Art course, because we really wanted to start this next cycle, you know, running, because there's so much that we have to do together in terms of the community. There was so much euphoric, ecstatic energy coming out of the summer that we wanted to package it and shape it programmatically so people have a way to continue their journey with us. And I wanted, within this context, Anne, that lecture that you gave during Madonna Rising on Mary Magdalene was so sublime that we're now creating an entire pilgrimage next year in her honor. And I had an extraordinary experience personally the night we were in the labyrinth, where I, for the first time, looked at all the beautiful stained glass windows and the beautiful Mary rose window on the north portal, and experienced not Mary Mother, but Mary Magdalene, and realized that, you know, this story at the heart of Christianity between Mary Magdalene and Jesus was what really shaped Christianity. And she was written out of the books. She was written out of the history. But with the discovery of the Nag Hammadi texts in 1945, the Gnostic Gospels, the true story of the depth of their relationship and how she really shaped, and according to an increasing number of scholars, it was Mary Magdalene that in fact was the author of what we call the Gospel of John. And this comes from no less than R.E. Brown, the leading Catholic theologian. And so there's a very powerful story that is only now beginning to surface 2,000 years later of what really happened back then. And so after Madonna Rising, we're going to be going first to Rock Amador, to the Black Madonna, which, as you all know, is the preeminent Black Madonna. And then retracing the steps of Mary Magdalene, and some say Joseph of Arimathea, where they landed in the south of France and where they came, and we'll even go to the church where they have, it is said, the body still preserved of Mary Magdalene, the Baum Forest. So we're going to be getting all that information up for you in the next couple of days. We'll be keeping everybody informed. So visit our website, and also we'll be sending out links to everybody for what we're calling our Ubiverse. We've just acquired a company in the Netherlands that has built a beautiful community platform. So we have a Chartres group, and we'll be populating the Chartres group with all kinds of material, all kinds of content on everything from Manana to Whirling to energetics to trauma to transformation to Neolithic caves to the Shekinah to Mary Magdalene over the next several months, so that as we continue our pathway now toward next summer, there's going to be a community platform that all of you can participate in on a daily basis to keep informed and to interact with each other as an ongoing Chartrean community. So thank you, everyone. We're just about at our time. I'll turn it over now to Anne to give us a benediction. Then we'll say goodbye. Anne?
I think that we should start with this tremendous initiatives that you're starting here. We'll start with the blessing of Mary Magdalene. So I would invoke her presence and her guidance to you, Jim, and to all the faculty, to all the students, to all who are participating in this marvelous work, that she should be present with us so that we can discover the next steps that we need to make, so that we make them in the right way, and so that we gather the fruit that you have sown in every direction to make something absolutely extraordinary as a creation for the new civilization that we're trying to create, the template of a new civilization. And I'm sure that she is with us. I just feel her presence as I speak, and may she bring her blessing to all of you.
Amen. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, everyone. This has been a wonderful call. We'll be sending out the links to our community platform. We'll be keeping you all informed of these various opportunities. Again, I want to thank our staff for everything they've been doing. I want to thank all of you for your support and enthusiasm for what we're building in this sacred place. And now I'll bid you all goodbye and good day. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Blessings.
Bye.